And here we go on our Tuesday edition, the Hey Mary Kay edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Our Football Insider subscribers sending us in questions. And let's start here, Mary Kay. This is an interesting one from Dave in Cleveland. Apparently, Terry Pluto brought this up. He was talking about maybe trading for Jimmy Garoppolo if Deshaun Watson gets a really long suspension. So Dave wants to know, hey, Mary Kay, if Deshaun Watson gets a really long suspension, should the Browns look into acquiring Jimmy Garoppolo?
Well, if Deshaun is out for a full year, I do think they have to go back to the drawing board and sort of reevaluate everything. Really take a good long look at what they have and what they hope to accomplish and decide if they need to upgrade from Jacoby Brissett for the year or if they're comfortable with what they've seen in OTAs and minicamp. Now, I do know that when they were contemplating veteran quarterbacks, and ultimately, obviously, arrived on the trade for Deshaun Watson, that Jimmy Garoppolo was not on their radar. He was not someone that they felt was an upgrade over Baker Mayfield, or certainly not enough of an upgrade over Baker Mayfield. So back in March, whatever, when they were looking at doing something like this, Jimmy was not in the discussion. But once again, when Baker Mayfield now is no longer an option, and if Deshaun Watson is out for a year, perhaps they do look at it. I haven't heard that they will. But at that point, I think anything goes. Anything goes. And, I think you would have to look at everything. Because the question at that point becomes not is Jimmy Garoppolo an upgrade over Baker Mayfield, but is he an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett? And that's what they would have to decide. The other factor in all of this is the fact that he has a $25.5 million contract for this coming season. And that is, depending on what happens with Baker Mayfield, you're not going to keep Baker Mayfield's contract and then add a Jimmy Garoppolo as well. This would come down to somehow you were able to unload Baker Mayfield and then you decide that you could do something like that. But for right now, I'm going to say probably still pretty highly unlikely, considering he was not on the radar in March.
I guess the other part of it too is what would it cost to get? I don't know what San Francisco is looking for in return for Jimmy Garoppolo. If they're looking for like a high pick, which the Browns don't really have much of, and I'm sure they don't want to give up like their second rounders and third rounders, and kind of based on where their draft is at right now. But also, like, does San Francisco want Baker Mayfield? There's a lot of moving parts there than just saying, yeah, go get Jimmy Garoppolo. But it does sort of speak to this idea of if they end up not having Deshaun Watson for the year, you can't just sit back and let this year be a lost year.
No, because the reason why obviously they went out and did this in the first place is because they have a roster that's ready to win. They have guys that came here just to play with a guy like Deshaun Watson. We're talking about guys like Jadeveon Clowney, guys like Amari Cooper, who may have had some inkling that they were going to upgrade at quarterback when they actually made that trade as well. You've got guys like Myles Garrett who have set the bar so high at the Super Bowl. So you don't have a bunch of guys that are going to want to have inferior quarterback play. I'm not saying that is Jacoby Brissett, but they really have to look at it and evaluate it and try to determine if they are going to need an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett for a full year. Nobody wants to have this season be a waste like last year was. Nobody wants that. So I do think that they might have to at least explore anything they possibly can if he's out for the entire season. Now, in terms of the compensation for the 49ers, if it's the last season for Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think it is the last season for Jimmy Garoppolo, then you can't really expect too much in return in terms of draft pick compensation. Nobody's going to give you a high pick for somebody that isn't going to be around long. So that would factor into it as well. But certainly if the Browns determined that were the way to go, they could work something out just the same way that the Panthers and the Browns can work something out for Baker Mayfield if they get motivated enough.
Yeah. So I guess when it comes to Baker Mayfield, when does that motivation turn into like desperation for the Browns? Or even the Panthers? I mean, because we're okay. So we're at this point now. We're recording this on Monday. It's June 20th. We're a little over a month from training camps opening. everybody kind of goes away for a little while this time of year. You know, a lot of GMs and coaches, this is kind of their chance to get away kind of early July leading up to training camp. But when does Andrew Berry, whether he's sitting on the beach or wherever he is, send a text over to, is it Scott Fitterer in Carolina? I can't remember who
Yeah,
the GM there is.
that's correct.
Scott Fitterer, when does he send a text and say, hey, we got to get this done?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think it's the Browns that have the sense of urgency. I think it's the Panthers that have to have the sense of urgency because they are the football team that needs to get that playbook in Baker Mayfield's hand, and they need to get him working with his receivers and trying to figure, out how he's going to acclimate to their whole program, their system, their scheme, their players. So I don't think the onus is on the Cleveland Browns to pick up that phone and make sure they get that done. If the Carolina Panthers determine that Baker Mayfield is an upgrade for them over Sam Darnold, and they really want to do this trade and really want to try to make a better effort to contend this season, they are the ones that need to get off the schneid and get motivated and make that phone call and try to figure out what they can do to get Baker there.